Hello everyone. Welcome to my channel. Please subscribe and keep watching more details. Chicago Fire didn't release a new promo. See exciting images from new episode. The Chicago Fire winter premiere packed a punch, but fans got worried when no TV promo was released for the January 15 episode, now the January 22 episode. It's possible that NBC isn't running that promo out of respect for the wildfires in California. Or they might want to keep the cliffhanger about Joe Cruz unresolved. As a reminder, the Chicago Fire winter premiere ended with Joe Cruz being shot. He got pulled into a nefarious sequence of events by the cousin, Junior, of someone Cruz chose not to save from a previous fire, Flacco. Junior is dead, but Cruz wound up shot and bleeding out in his car. How can he explain this to his wife, Chloe, or his boss, Kelly Severide, at Firehouse 51? NBC viewers didn't get a promo to tease what's next. It created some additional drama for Chicago Fire Season 13, Episode 10. The good news is that NBC has released many images for that new episode, Chaos Theory. Episode images from Chaos Theory, Chicago Fire Season 13, Episode 10. This new episode will finally debut on Wednesday, January 22. It got delayed a bit. NBC postponed its January 15 Chicago episodes due to a speech from President Joe Biden. Miranda Ray Mayo returns as Stella Kidd for the new episode. This episode may have been teased in some recent Chicago Fire spoilers. Below is an image of Kidd walking the hallway of a possible school. It features a guest star from the new episode. An additional image has Kidd leading Truck 81 again. She missed the winter premiere and Mouch stepped in as the lieutenant. This next new image is an important one. We see Joe Cruz on a call with Kelly Severide. Does this mean a time jump happened, or is Cruz working a call while still very injured? Another image is quite suspicious, as it seems to indicate Cruz is feeling some guilt. He's sitting alone in the storage area for Firehouse 51's gear. Does new Chief Dom Pascal figure out what happened? The image below, with the chief approaching Cruz, suggests something's up. More news from the One Chicago shows. Joe Manoso teased the fate of Joe Cruz. The Chicago Fire star spoke about what has happened and what's to come on the show. Here are details about the January 29 NBC crossover event. Chicago Med, Fire, and PD will deal with the same call in Chicago, forcing the teams from each show to work together on an epic night. As the winter winds howled through the city of Chicago, the crew of Firehouse 51 prepared for another intense shift. The streets were slick with ice, and the cold air seemed to cut through even the thickest of jackets. The firehouse, usually a place of constant movement, now seemed quieter than ever. There was an unusual silence, one that hadn't been felt in the tight-knit group of firefighters and paramedics for a long time. Despite the quiet, anticipation buzzed through the air. The city was waiting. The fans of Chicago Fire were anxiously anticipating the next episode of their favorite show, but little did they know they would be left hanging for just a little while longer. For the first time in months, the network had failed to release a new promo for the upcoming episode. Firehouse 51's crew felt the weight of this news like a sudden drop in temperature. They were used to having a preview, a sneak peek into what was to come, something to help them plan their emotions for the upcoming storyline. Without it, they felt exposed, like standing at the edge of a cliff, without knowing whether there was solid ground below. Captain Matthew Casey was the first to notice the absence of the promo. He was sitting at his desk, scanning reports and handling logistics, when he glanced at the television in the break room. It was usually where the promos aired, followed by snippets of the latest episode, drama, action, and heartbreak, all condensed into a few electrifying seconds. But tonight, there was nothing. Has anyone else noticed there's no promo for the new episode? Casey asked, his voice cutting through the quiet hum of the firehouse. Lieutenant Kelly Severide, who had been flipping through a case file, looked up from his paperwork. Yeah, I saw that too. Strange, right? You think something big is coming, and they want to keep it under wraps? Or are they just being lazy? Who knows? Casey replied, rubbing his temples. The promo was always the best part of my night. At least we had some hint of what was coming. Severide nodded in agreement. The Firehouse crew had become accustomed to the promo revealing just enough to build their anticipation, whether it was a glimpse of a dangerous rescue, a shocking twist in a relationship, or a teaser of the emotional trials each member of Firehouse 51 faced. But now, with nothing to fuel the fire, it felt as though they were walking into an episode blindfolded. In the dorm, firefighter Joe Cruz and paramedic Sylvie Brett were talking quietly about their upcoming shifts, but the absence of the promo was still on their minds. They had both been looking forward to the episode for days, wondering how the season's ongoing storylines would progress, whether Cruz would get closer to his new role as a team leader or if Brett would face more challenges in her complicated relationship with a fellow firefighter. "I was really hoping they'd show a clip of what's happening with Mouch," Brett said, her face showing concern. "You think he's finally going to be back to full strength after his surgery?" Cruz shrugged, but his expression was tense. "I don't know, but I can't shake the feeling that something big is coming. Maybe they're just keeping it under wraps to surprise us." Brett gave a small laugh, trying to keep the mood light. "A surprise, huh? Yeah, that sounds right. I just hope it's not another cliffhanger." As the crew went about their business, the absence of the promo began to make itself known. It wasn't just the fans who felt the void, it was the entire team. The unpredictability of the next episode made everyone uneasy. In the office, Firehouse 51's battalion chief, Wallace Bowden, stood by the bulletin board, looking over a stack of paperwork. He was used to being the rock, the person who always had the answers, but this time he too was left in the dark. No teaser meant that even he wasn't sure what would happen next. He had to rely on the writers and producers to bring him the same kind of excitement he usually delivered to his team. "I don't like this," Bowden muttered to himself, shaking his head. "We need to know what we're walking into. The unknown doesn't sit well with me." Over in the kitchen, paramedics Violet Mikami and Emma Jacobs were preparing their meals, but their conversation kept drifting back to the same thing, the missing promo. Violet was usually the more optimistic of the two, but even she couldn't help but feel the absence of the usual excitement. "This feels like waiting for a storm," Violet said, stirring her soup. "You know it's coming, but you have no idea when or what it's going to be like." Emma gave her a look. "And no one likes a storm without any warning." Just then, the firehouse's alarms blared, cutting through the tension in the room. Everyone jumped to action, pushing aside the uncertainty of the unknown. The call was real. The promo might not have come, but the job never stopped, and neither did Firehouse 51. It was time to put their concerns on hold, to focus on the job at hand. In the real world, there were no previews, no teasers, no hints of what was to come. Only the immediate urgency of life-or-death situations. As the crew mounted the fire engines and paramedic units, the excitement of the unknown took on a new meaning. They didn't need a promo to know the dangers they faced every day. They didn't need a preview to understand the stakes of each call, each rescue, each moment that could change everything. Later that night, as the team gathered around the kitchen table after a harrowing rescue, there was a shared sense of relief. The unknown was not so scary after all. They were always ready, always prepared. The missing promo wasn't a problem. It was a reminder that in their world, the only thing that mattered was the real action, and sometimes that was better than anything that could be shown in a teaser. The team laughed, exchanged stories, and shared their experiences from the day's calls. Without the promo, they realized they didn't need it to be excited about the next episode. Life at Firehouse 51 would always be unpredictable, and that was enough. But as they sat together, there was still that small, lingering thought. What would the new episode have been like? What would have been teased? And how would the storylines continue to unfold? But for now, they were content knowing the real drama was happening in real time on the streets of Chicago, and that was enough for them.